morning, everyone. Good to see you all. If you wouldn't mind, if it's not already on your screen, if you could just rename yourself with the organization that you are here on behalf of, that'd be great. It's mostly just for my curiosity. All right. I am recording this meeting and we'll make sure that we post it on the HStrong webpage, or the page where the grant information is, along with a Q&A document after, probably in a few days after today's meeting. We'll also make sure that we update that document as we go through this open grant period. So be sure to check back on the page to see if there are new answers to questions that might be helpful as you're writing this grant application. I am going to share my screen. And my plan for this morning is really just to go through the kind of highlights of this grant program, the timeline, and remind you of how to get questions answered while this process is open. So the easiest way to navigate to the grant program information is to go to the HStrong main page and then just scroll down about a third of the way, and you'll see this behavioral health grant opportunity. If you click here to learn more and apply, you will see the page that is designated to this program. It has pretty much all the information that is listed at the top of the grant application and should hopefully answer most of your questions. But if you have additional questions after this meeting, we've listed my colleague Sydney here in the question section. So go ahead and shoot her an email. Please be sure to send your questions by email to Sydney. I want to make sure that nothing gets missed. So sometimes if you call it a desk phone and people have time off or are working from home, we don't always see things in a time, as timely as we'd like to. So please make sure you ask questions that way. All right, so this is our second round of enhancing behavioral health care access for older adults, and we're really excited to be able to put out this grant opportunity again this year. The grant application is officially open and is due by 5 o'clock on Wednesday, May 1st. You'll see this apply now button and it'll take you to the application. I'll show you that in a moment, but I just want to scroll down this page a little bit more. So we've listed key information about the grant and grant eligibility. We've got some, like we did last year, it's the same language that we used last year, but just to offer some guidance about who might be eligible for this grant and some kind of focus areas that you might be looking to apply for. I do want to make sure that I highlight that we have included language that is indicating that you are not limited to these things. So if you are an organization that doesn't fit into one of these categories, that's okay. You may still be eligible. If you are not aiming to deliver one of these 4 services or address one of these 4 areas, that's okay. These are just, ways to kind of guide and help you think about this opportunity. The grant period will be June 1st of 2024 through May 31st of 2025. This is the info session that you have joined. And then we've got the timeline here. So applications opened at the end of last week, 5 days ago. Today is the info session. The applications close May 1st, as I said. I didn't include a specific date for notifying applicants because, as you may assume, it sort of depends on how many applications we get. If we get 5 applications, we can review those really quickly and move through that process quite quickly. If we receive 50 applications, then that's going to take us a bit longer. So we've kind of left that left that vague, but the project will start, we'll shoot for a June 1st start date. I'm going to jump over to the application. So when you click apply now, it'll take you over to our Google form. And at the top of the form, you'll see all of the information that was on the web page. So you can scroll through that. We have, actually, you know, I'm not going to really show you this, but basically it'll take you through a series of questions. So there are different sections over 10 pages. And you'll be asked to answer certain questions and upload certain information. Before you get into this Google form, you can get a preview of all of the questions and all the information that we need by clicking here, where it says applications and required documents are due May 1st. So down here, please refer to this document. Will take you to this Google Doc. This document is in share only or is in read only mode. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to go and make a copy, and then you'll be able to edit that copy. So what I recommend is to make a copy of this document and then type in your responses. And then when you're ready to submit your application, copy and paste your responses from this document into that Google form. And up here at the top, it links you back to that application form. So again, you've got all of the same information that's in the application that's listed on the web page. And then you'll see here exactly one information that you need to plug into that Google form. So we've got a lot of demographic information about your organization. We've got questions about whether or not you are a 501c3. We have information about fiscal sponsorship if you are an organization that needs a fiscal sponsor. And then we have narrative questions. So this is really kind of the bulk of this application. This is what we are really excited to read. And we've got word limits in there. So trying to help you to be concise in certain places. And I'll let you read these if you haven't already. Take some time to read these questions. And then evaluation and program goals. So we've done something a little bit different this year with asking for specific program goals. And what we're looking for is a list of 3 to 5 goals related to your program. What we would want to see is kind of your goals and your program tying back to the goals of this grant program. So, you know, as you're thinking about how your project or program will meet the goals of this grant, think about how then your goals also associate with the goals of the grant. So we're looking for 3 to 5 program goals with measurable objective and action steps. We also want to know kind of what is the data that you'll collect throughout this grant period. And we'll be looking for reports on that data throughout the program. But then at the end, we will also look for a program summary. But we would like for you to, based on the program that you're creating, to identify the data that you'll be collecting. We have a little information about the grant timeline. So we have, the way that we have to do grants is we've just split up payments into 2 payments. So there will be a portion that's released immediately, and then there's a portion that's released by September 1st. And before that's released, we'll require an invoice as well as a brief project update. So if you become a grantee of this grant, then there will be more guidance on that, but just want to give you a heads up on how that works. And then we're also looking for a reference letter. So just one, preferably kind of relevant to this program or the work that is relevant to this program that you're proposing. And from a past, an existing or past professional partner. We have a little bit more information to guide you on that letter. And then in terms of the budget, you'll be prompted again with some specific questions. And what we will also need is for you to fill out this budget template. And if you've applied for a grant through us before, you've seen this template before, so it's nothing new, but I want to just spend a little bit of time on it. So here at the top, this is we want your name of your organization and your total annual organization budget. So this is not the budget for this process. This is not the budget total for this process. This is your organization-wide budget. Down here, budget period, you've got column B. This column B should only contain values associated with the amount of funding you are seeking through this grant. So if you are seeking $25,000 from Age Strong to support a $40,000 program, you are going to have 25. Oh, I can't type into it. Oh, you're going to have 25. No, it's not working. Okay, it's view only. Okay, so you'll also need to make a copy of this for yourselves to type in. So you'll put in 25,000. And then if you have other funds, say you have $15,000 in other funds that create the whole project budget, you'll put in, oh my goodness, I'm in the wrong place. I'm so sorry. This is the start and end date section. Down here is where you're putting in the amount of the funding that you're requesting. And then in column B, you are breaking out that request for this grant. If you have additional funds that are going to support your program, so you might have funds from anywhere that are going to be incorporated into this project, then you'll want to list out the total amount of those funds and the breakdown of those funds. And just to clarify, column C should not contain any information about the amount of funding you're requesting through this grant. So that's separate. And then in the description section, we really want to see a breakdown of the funding in each line. So if you have salaries and wages, you've got funding in that line. We want to see, how many staff, what are the hourly wages? How many hours are you anticipating paying them for this project? So we really want to see a breakdown of that information here. Okay. All right, so that is the budget section. And then you're ready to submit. So go through this document, plug in information before you, I would say, start going into the Google form. I will say that we've got the way the Google form is set right now, it is allowing edits. So if you do submit an application and then a week later, obviously within the open period before the deadline, you realize that you missed something or want to correct something, you can go back in and correct it. One kind of piece of advice that I would say to you is, as you're thinking about the grant project that you want to submit and write into this application, to really think about implementation and have implementation guide your project and your process. So for example, if your project is going to rely heavily on partnerships with, let's say, residential buildings that serve older adults, then how will that happen? Will thinking about, like, what does the partnership development look like? How will you achieve that? How will that look over the course of a year? So really, like, I really want to hammer home implementation. Think about barriers that might be ahead of you. Think about how you'll overcome those barriers, and incorporate that, I would say, into your project, into your application. I think that's all I'm going to say for right now, and I will open it up for questions. And I have some in the chat, so let me read them out. How many projects do you anticipate funding? Great question. That will all depend on what the applications, how the applications come in. So I will say last year we funded 6 projects. We have 450,000 through this grant program. So I anticipate maybe around that number, around 6, but it really will all depend on the size of the grants that are that people apply for. Do we have to fill column C? Column C. So column C is here, let me reshare my screen real quick. Yes. So I guess I will say this. If you are going to apply for Age Strong funding through this grant and only apply for that, your project will be fully covered by the $25,000 grant funds, then column C is just going to be identical to column B. So yes, copy and paste it over there. If you don't have that over there, that's okay. The total project budget is really meant to help us understand what other, what other funding is going to be a part of this project if you have other funding a part of this project. What is the average grant size? That's a great question. I would have to look back and see what it was last year. I would say that it really varies depending on the need of the organizations applying. So yeah, I can figure that out, but it's not, the average will not be probably close to every organization that received a grant last year. Can a university be the prime and community-based agencies as partners, or should it be reverse? I would say, oh, Bronwyn, hello. I would say that universities can be the prime applicant for this grant. Absolutely. Yeah. And definitely if you have partnerships, I assume that you'll talk about them, but we definitely, want to know about them. But yes, university can be the prime. Other questions? Or thoughts or reflections or anything? Anything, Sydney or Becca, that I have not mentioned that you think is really pertinent? Well, let me take a moment then while people are trying to think of questions, hopefully, to just share that Sydney Shadovitz is a part of my team and is, again, going to be fielding your questions, and she is a huge part of making this grant process work. And Becca Mayfield is our director of our behavioral health unit here at Age Strong. So she is very involved also with these behavioral health grants and is excited to read applications. Do we have a list of grantees from last year? Yes, it's actually, we will, we'll share it in the Q&A when it gets published. We do have a list. Would the city look to continue funding to current programs? Yeah, so I would say that our funding decisions are going to depend on what we receive, but we are not going to fund current grantees. It doesn't mean that if you're a current grantee, that doesn't guarantee that you're getting this grant, because this is a separate grant program. But there's no reason not to apply if you're a current grantee. Other questions? Okay. Oh. Do agencies that were funded last year have to reapply again? Yes. So this is a different grant program. It's a second round of the grant that happened last year. But as you'll recall, the last year's and this year's behavioral health grants are 1-year grants. So that means that once this period ends, your grant ends and you are no longer a behavioral health grantee. You'd be a past grantee. So yes, if you received funding last year and are doing work for the grant right now, that does not mean you do not need to reapply if you are looking for funding this next year. Any other questions? All right. If you do think of questions, please send them to Sydney by email. I would say, you know, the sooner the better. We will again update the Q&A section, Q&A document, and we'll post it on the website. But you know, don't wait till the last minute. I would also say when you go to apply, to try not to wait until, you know, 4:45 on the day it's due, because sometimes there are technical glitches and Sydney and I can't always navigate them. So we try, but certainly give yourself more time than you think you need. Do you have to have behavioral assessment experience to apply if only interested in the training part? So I'm not sure that I fully understand that question. I would say if you are applying, and if you'd like to expand on that question, that'd be great, but I will try to answer it. If you are applying for something like training, then we want to know of the relevant experience that you would bring to this program. So it may not be behavioral assessment experience, but it may be. The grant seems to be only for mental health experience. So this is a behavioral health grant, so it is heavily focused on addressing the behavioral health needs. It is fully focused on addressing the behavioral health needs of older adults. So that can look different in different settings. And it may be training, you know, someone may want to use this funding to train community health workers to implement behavioral health supports out in the field when they're working with older adults. So I would say, think about how anything that you're applying for ties into increasing and enhancing behavioral health services for older adults. Do you have a preference for new projects, or could we continue existing work? So I would say that's up to you and based on the need that you have. I'm not really sure. I mean, if you are delivering behavioral health services and are looking to enhance that work and enhance those services, then that would make sense to apply for this. Yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question. Do you have a preference for discrete projects that end at the close of the grant year, or is it fine to use this grant funding for work that will get going over the year and then continue afterwards? So for these grants, what we are looking for is work with these funds to be accomplished within the grant period. So it would, well, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a budget that is going to be completed at the end of the grant period. And we're looking for your reports to reflect that. Now, when I talked about implementation, something else that's really relevant is hiring. So it may take you the first quarter to hire the staff person that you need in order to implement your project and your services. That hiring is a part of your project, right? So certainly talk about that. But we're looking for the work that you are saying that you are doing with this grant. We want that to be completed by the end of the grant program. That is not to say that you are not going to continue the work that you're doing or that you started through this grant program. In fact, that's what we would like. And I think that we have a question on our application about kind of how will you sustain this work and what's the plan around that. So that's, yeah, we definitely want to see that. But in terms of spending these funds after the grant period, that's not what we're looking for. Okay, do you have, are current grantees a priority for additional funding? No. I would say we are looking for the applicants, we're looking for applications that describe projects and programs that are going to enhance behavioral health services for older adults, and that does not mean that that is current grantees. So I would say no. Can you please talk a bit about the extent to which you are supporting wellness and prevention projects that promote elders' mental health as opposed to clinical services for those with diagnoses? So I would say it's a good question. I would say that we are really I don't know if I can answer that right now. Let me think about how to answer that, and I'll get back to you, or I'll put it in the Q&A doc. Thank you. Other questions? These are good questions. And I also want to say that if when we post the document, you will probably see more, you will see more responses to your questions that are more articulate than how I'm being right now. So definitely keep an eye out for those. Other questions? Will you email the Q&A updates to those who signed up for the Zoom? Did people sign up for the Zoom? I don't think I had a registration on here. So I don't think that I have your email addresses. So I would say no. Please come back to the grant webpage and look for the Q&A document. Any other questions? All right. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I'm going to wrap us up and say, send your questions to Sydney by email, please. Please avoid phone call questions. It's really helpful for us to get those by email, and it helps us to be more timely in our responses. Again, I just want to remind you to really think implementation as you think about and write your application. That if that is like if there's one piece of advice that I can give you, that is it. That might mean that your application looks less ambitious, but I think what we really want to see is like, is this realistic? How's it going to look in real life? What are the barriers, and how will we overcome them? So think about that and talk about that. We want to see that. All right. Great to see many of you on here. Thanks for joining this morning. And again, we'll have this recording if you ever want to look at it again, which you probably won't. But if you do want to reference anything, we'll have this posted in the next few days. And we look forward to receiving and reading your grant applications. Have a great day.
Thank you.